everyone. Welcome back to In the Ring with Termite and Mr. S. Termite's obviously not here today. He's on a much-needed break. And today we have Megan Law with us. And we're just going to jump right into it, Megan. It's been a pleasure just talking to you a little bit earlier before this, so I get a better feel for who you are. But I get excited on these things because I get to learn more about you as we go along. But tell us a little bit more about, I want to set the stage of currently you're a successful entrepreneur. You do a lot of direct to marketing, a lot of different, you're building with different clients and building a sales base and organization. But it wasn't always that way. I think you said you started in the corporate world, a little bit more stuffy and rigid, which didn't allow you to really even have the life that you wanted to live. So talk to us about, I guess, where you came from and how it started, and then we'll talk about how things are going well for you right now.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I started in the corporate world. Mm-hmm. I worked for a manufacturing company. Mm-hmm. They did integrated electrical systems for like offshore drilling rigs and drill ships and all of that. It was really cool. I got to travel the world. We had offices in Singapore, Brazil, China. China was our biggest manufacturing plant. And I was the international CFO. Oh, wow. So I managed all of the countries, $100 million organization. And that's where I started. I loved it. I loved the travel. While I was doing that, I went back to school and got my MBA. And I did an international program for that as well. So I got to travel the world. What was really cool is I got to do like board meetings in France, and I got to take my husband, to Paris and Marseille, and like was really living the life. We were young. Sure. We got married when we were 24. So, and I got into that job like right after college. Oh, wow. And I started as a controller, worked my way up to CFO by 30. And making a big income. My husband was in the oil field making a lot of money, and we were blowing and going and just really like living it up. Living the dream. We really were. We had one child. Okay. And we were wanting to grow our family even more. My whole life I've been very driven, I was telling you before, I wanted to be the breadwinner in my family. I wanted my husband to be a stay-at-home dad. I never dreamed I would be a stay-at-home mom. Like, that was not in the cards for me. And, but family was always number one. Sure. Like, my youngest sister was born when I was 5, and that was my baby. Like, she was my baby. My mom was like, I never fed her. I never changed diet. Like, you did it all. You just took care of her. I did. She was my baby. I've always wanted to be a mom. And, but I was working so hard and managing international, like I'm up all night working, during the day I'm working, here in the area. And, as we were trying to grow our family, I started having miscarriages. Wow. And after the third one, the third miscarriage, yeah. After the third one, my husband and I decided we're just going to be grateful for what God has given us. We have our one. We can always adopt, all of that. And so I went back to the doctor and was like, okay, I'm done. No more. Like, let's do what we got to do to make sure I don't get pregnant again. My husband didn't want to go through any more losses. 3 losses in 2 years was hard. I could only imagine. It was devastating. It, knocks the wind out of your sails. And it's, you start questioning everything. Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, what is my purpose? Is there a reason? Why is this happening? Right. I always thought my purpose in this life was to have a big family and, Kind of hit your identity. It does. Absolutely. And when I went to make some more permanent changes so that it wouldn't happen again, he was like, oh, well, you're pregnant. Wow. And I was like, okay, so that's what we're doing now. I'm sure you're kind of nervous after 3. You're like, are we going to go maybe 4? And you just... Yeah. Kind of tense the whole time. You are. And after the first loss, we didn't want to tell anybody when we got pregnant. Right. The next time, the next 2 times, we just didn't want to say anything. And that last one just felt different. Oh, did it? It did. It felt different. And I decided I'm telling everybody. Because if it out there. If it happens again, it's what was meant to be, and we'll be at peace with it. But I was going to do everything in my power to make sure it didn't. Mm-hmm. And I decided to, as hard as it was, to give up our lifestyle and everything I had worked so hard for. I was 30 years old and decided I'm leaving the corporate world.
But first, a word from our sponsor, Epic Industries. If you're in the industrial or commercial space and you need concrete, tilt wall construction, dirt work, or fabrication, give Epic Industries a call. And that's probably, not everybody can probably relate to that, but someone driven like yourself, success, and to give up something like that. Everybody wants the life that you describe, but not everybody's willing to go through what it takes to get there.
Right.
And when people like you do go through those steps, you own it. It becomes you, and to just give all that up, I don't think, not everybody can appreciate how hard that is.
It's hard, and you have to give up so much. We got rid of all our toys. We had 2 travel trailers. We had a play Jeep that we just never drove because we didn't have time.
Right.
So when you're working that hard, you don't have time. You don't have time to enjoy the things that you actually do have. You're like, this is going to be so great. We're making all this money, and we're going to travel, and we're going to... But when? When are we going to do all that? And so we got rid of everything, and I got rid of my car. Like, we went down to 1 vehicle. Like, we just made all the cuts we needed to everywhere to be able to grow our family, because that was the most important thing to me.
Right. And so you're going through all this, and like you said, from the very early age, you just had this driven mentality. You're going to go to school. You don't even question, what am I going to do with you're going to college, you're going to do this. So you just had things kind of just ordered, and you're just going to follow that path, and this throws you for a loop. Now, what do I got to do to change? I'm sure going through the process of, what am I giving up? Did you get to the point where you felt like you were giving up on a dream because you had to choose? You feel like you're having to choose between my family and this? Why can't I have both?
I didn't until after the baby was born.
Okay.
Because I didn't care what I was given. I told my husband, I was like, I will eat beans every day. Like, I don't care. I will do whatever I have to do to have a healthy pregnancy and a healthy baby. And we made a lot of sacrifices. And again, as hard as it was, I had that healthy baby. And then she was my world. I mean, and my son too, but all the struggles and the hard times that we went through trying to have her.
Oh, I can imagine.
I could not imagine putting her in daycare and anyone else taking care of her. And so what started off as temporary time off from work turned into, I'm not going back because no one else can have this baby. She is mine. Like, no one's raising her. I'm raising her. Like, that's it. And my
so it was
son
satisfying
too,
in that way.
It was.
You didn't feel like it was a sacrifice at that point?
At that point, no. About 9 months later, postpartum kicked in really hard. And I was questioning everything. I was questioning, who am I? Like, my identity was gone.
Right.
I was a successful businesswoman, and I had such an important role, and like I integrated or implemented new systems in the company, and like I was the go-to point person for everything, because financials touch every part of a business,
of course,
right? So I was involved, my hands were in everything worldwide.
And you made a difference, you made an impact,
I
and
did.
That brings you value.
I did. And then you leave and they just replace you. And now it's like, what did I really matter?
Yeah.
Like, was I as important as I felt like I was? But I struggled a lot. And I got to the point where, like, my son was in kindergarten. My daughter was a newborn. And I would get up in the morning and I would take him to school and I would be in my pajamas. And then I would come home and I would just take care of a baby all day. And then I would go to school and pick him up still in my pajamas. I wasn't getting dressed. I wasn't putting on makeup. I wasn't bathing regularly.
Yeah, you kind of in a slump. You just don't why? You almost feel like, what's the
point?
Who cares?
My husband works in the oil field, so he's gone 2 weeks out of every month. He works 14 and 14. Those 2 weeks he was gone, it was just me and 2 children. I wasn't talking to adults. I wasn't I just had separated myself from everything. Yeah. And it was hard. It was so hard.
Well, I think a lot of people can relate to that. So that's why I think it's worth talking about this, because you're surely not the only one.
No, absolutely.
Some people feel that way. Did you feel like, hey, I'm the only one that's going through this and I can't really talk to anybody about it?
There have been many times that I felt that way. One, when I was going through the miscarriages, I felt embarrassed. and like there was something wrong with me, and like why would I, like, who am I going to talk to? Even though the doctor's like, this is normal. I had a patient who had 8 miscarriages before they had, and I'm like, oh no.
I'm trying to make you feel better.
Right, trying to make you feel better, but I'm like, I can't do this 8 times. Like, I'm done. Like, no more. But then also when I was struggling with the postpartum, I didn't really understand what it was. And I didn't know why I was feeling the way I did. And I thought maybe it was just my ego. And like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's one of those, you can't really put it into words until it's over and you've come out on the other side of it. But when you're going through, like, I was never to the point where I thought about hurting my children or anything like it never got that severe. But that
happens to some people.
Oh, absolutely.
God bless them, but you can almost understand why.
Yeah, I can understand why. Yeah. I can absolutely understand why. I would call my husband and be like, I can't do this. Like, you've got to find a way to come home and to be home with us. And I realized what I needed was something more in my life.
Right.
And that's when I got into network marketing.
So that's what did it. So what would you say that, before we get into that, those are good stories here, what would you impart to, I guess, other women that have gone through this postpartum and don't know what their identity is? What kind of advice would you give them?
I would tell them to not separate themselves from everyone in their life. Don't push the people away who love you the most. And when someone offers to come over and take care of the baby so you can take a shower, take them up on it.
Set your pride aside.
Set your pride aside, like, because that's how she was mine. And I didn't want anyone else to feel like they had to take, like, I didn't want anyone else.
Help.
I didn't want help. Yes, because, like, she was my gift from God. Like, I went through all those hard times to be in this moment. Why can't I just do it all?
Right.
And so find your people, the people that are going to love you no matter what you look like, covered in spit up, haven't showered in 3 days, like, and let them in. Because just sometimes even having those adult conversations can be exactly what you need to lift your spirits. And
little things.
And just know that you will come out on the other side. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, even if you don't feel like
as long as you keep pushing.
Possible.
I like to emphasize
Absolutely. You have to.
There's I hate to be dismal, there is no light at the end of the tunnel if you just give up. And
Absolutely.
But if you keep pushing, you will get through that.
And I think, like, I can't speak for dads. I'm sure it's the same. Everything we do in life is for our children, right? So we have to keep pushing for them.
I agree.
Like, look at that little baby's face.
It's like anything business-wise. What is your why? Why are you doing this?
Right.
Why are you putting yourself through so much? It's our kids.
It's our children. It absolutely is. They keep us grounded and they keep us strong, and they, as hard as it can be, as frustrating as those little things can be at times, they just sit and be grateful for them, and just keep your eyes open and know that you will come out on the other side.
If you keep pushing. So now we'll get into, so you're a successful entrepreneur. You've gone from, being for a large corporate company, you had a role, go through identity crisis, but now I guess your gears are turning, like, what else can I do? What else can I bring value? And so walk us through what you discovered and how you became out of a corporate world to being a stay-home mom, and maybe you thought that those are the only 2 choices that you had.
Yeah.
But now you created or found a third option.
Right. So growing up in the house I did, my parents, they really imparted education on us. That was the most important thing. You go to college, like you graduate high school, you go to college, it's not optional. I was in college before I found out that my mom didn't go to college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was, and I was like, wait, what?
You just made assumptions.
Like, you're making me do this, but you didn't do this? Like, and you're fine. But my dad was a very successful entrepreneur. And so...
in case you had it modeled
I
at least.
I absolutely did. He could turn dirt into gold. Like,
That's
he
awesome.
was just incredible. And... but it wasn't always the case. Like, I didn't realize that growing up we were poor. Like, I didn't know that. And I guess I can't really say poor. We always had a house over our head. We always had food, but they struggled. And he turned it around.
That's funny. I talk about that with a lot of friends. We're different age groups. Mm-hmm. Young kids now, they got social media.
Right.
When we were younger, we didn't have that. Like you said, I didn't know I was poor.
Yep.
And I wasn't poor, but we didn't have a lot. I wore Pro Wings from Payless shoes. And I thought everybody wore those.
Yeah.
I didn't know what Nikes were. I didn't know what Reeboks were because you didn't see it on social media. So it's kind of better growing up in those times not knowing you don't have a lot.
Right.
I think it's tougher for kids nowadays because they
Absolutely.
see there's a contrast. Like, I don't have this, they do. So that's tough nowadays.
Well, I'll tell you, the other day, my 8-year-old, we were shopping, and she put on a pair of sunglasses, and she goes, "Oh, these look Gucci." And I was like, why do you even know what Gucci is? Like, wait a minute, hold up, wait, whoa, slow down.
Uh-oh.
And then that's when I realized, like, times are so different. So different, and it's scary.
And it's one of those things where you want to bless your kids. You and I,
Absolutely.
it sounds like we're similar. We didn't grow up poor, but we were like probably lower middle class or just middle class. And now you're doing well. You want to give your kids things you didn't
Right.
have. But
Right.
there is that, am I pushing it too far? Am I giving them
Absolutely.
too much? Are they becoming spoiled? So that's a tough line. We'll save that for another
Yeah,
discussion.
oh, that could be a whole nother
It
segment.
is. But first, a word from our sponsor, Pearland Coffee Roasters. If you're ever in the Pearland area and you want a great cup of coffee, not from a big chain, you want it done right, go visit Pearland Coffee Roasters. They've got 2 locations to serve you. Look them up online, follow them on Facebook, Pearland Coffee Roasters. So after going through that, how did you make the transition? Let's talk about you. We thought it was just corporate world or stay-home mom. Those are the only 2 choices. How and when did you discover this third option?
Yeah, so my sister, actually, my younger sister, she was in network marketing, and she was doing very well for herself. She was driving a free car, and she was, like, once a week they would have a meeting, and so she was just around a bunch of people all the time having fun, and she would go and do these parties, and she's teaching people about skincare and makeup, and I looked at it. And I will tell you, for 2 years, she tried to get me to...
Really, for 2 years?
2 years, she tried to get me to join her team and do this with her. And I was like, no, I have an MBA from Duke. I am not selling skincare and
It was a pride
makeup.
thing.
It was a pride thing. I also knew nothing about it.
Right. So it's an unknown thing also.
Absolutely. You don't know what you don't know.
And now tell us a little bit, I know what network marketing is. I
Yep,
think a lot of people do, but maybe some people don't. So
Yeah.
give us a little, what is network marketing?
So network marketing, direct sales, social selling, all these terms, and now a new term, omni marketing, which is fantastic, which is making its wave. The company I'm with now, they're leading the way. They created it. It's fantastic. But direct sales, it's basically you have a product and you share it with someone else, and they buy through you.
There's no store involved.
There's no store.
Retail. It's you.
It's just
representing
me.
a brand.
There's no brick and mortar. They place their orders through me. The company sends it direct to them. You also have the opportunity to build a team and to teach other people how to do what you're doing.
So what finally, you said your sister tried to get into it. You weren't sure. What made that transition?
It was the
What made it
depression.
pivot?
It was the depression. All I wanted. I signed up so that I was allowed to go to the meetings once a week.
Okay. You just wanted to get out of the house.
I wanted to get out of my house. I wanted something for me because my career was always what was mine. And I no longer had that.
Did you feel selfish saying, oh, I want something for me, I should just sacrifice everything?
I did.
I hear a lot of that with women especially. They
Yes.
feel like, I'm being selfish, I want something for me. I must sacrifice day after day.
That stay-at-home mom guilt is hard, especially when you go from making a substantial income and you give it up. You no longer feel like you can go get your hair done or your nails done or spend money on yourself because you're not contributing financially to the family. Even though my husband would go,
Just do it.
go do it. Like, why?
It's an inner guilt.
It is. It absolutely is. And you feel like if I go spend this money on myself, I'm taking something away from my children and from my household. And these things that I want are material, superficial things.
Talk yourself out of them.
I would talk myself out of them. And so I was not taking care of myself. And so I started in the network marketing industry just to get out of my house.
Okay.
And I joined and I went to the meeting, and the women were so inspiring. And they were uplifting and they were positive. And it was everything I needed in my life.
Awesome.
And I didn't realize I needed it. I just wanted to get out of my house. I wanted a reason to put on a dress.
Sure.
And to put on
Get
makeup.
out of your PJs and
exactly.
just go somewhere.
And to say, okay, I have this meeting, I have to go, because I no longer had meetings. I no longer had somewhere to be. I no longer had a busy schedule.
You have a purpose, essentially.
I did not have a purpose. And
well,
I
hate
struggle with
that.
saying that.
I'm sorry I said that because your purpose as a mom.
I say it all the time. I say it all the time.
You felt like you didn't have a purpose.
I needed a purpose other than being a wife and a mom.
Right.
We all do.
I agree.
Being a wife and a mom is not enough because there's no room in there
There's
for
definitely
you.
a purpose, but it is not the end all.
Right. Yes, absolutely. It is. And so I start going to these meetings, and I was like, maybe I can do this. Granted, I was still wearing the same makeup I had been wearing since 9th grade in high school because I didn't know any different. No one had ever taught me. And so I'm going to these meetings and I'm learning a little bit more, and I start immersing myself in the environment, and I start picking up little things. And so I would get people to host a party for me. And I would go to their house and I would set out my stuff, and I would teach them how to put on makeup. And they're like, oh, this is great. And then they would buy the makeup. And I was like, wait a minute. You really like it?
You're surprised.
I was surprised. And I started doing really well. And I realized I'm kind of good at this. Like, I could actually do this. And it wasn't taking a ton of time away from my family. And that was number one, most important. I wanted to be a working mom, but I wanted to be home.
Right. You figured you couldn't do both.
Right.
And this was kind of that.
Right. And this was like pre-world shutdown where there weren't as many work from home jobs.
Sure.
Especially in my field. In accounting, you got to be there,
right?
Your hands touch everything. You've got to be there. And so, because I tried, trust me, I tried looking at becoming a teacher. I was like, and I was like, I don't know about all that. But this actually was a place for me to be able to teach, but not children.
And I would say, so you're going from accounting, people who put the cliches and all these different, types of things that you could do in a career. Accountants generally are not salespeople.
Right.
So you're probably nervous, like, I'm not a salesperson.
Right, absolutely.
And it sounds like, this is how I approach things, you're not a salesperson, you're an educator.
Yes.
You're trying to help people with, hey, I'm going to teach you something that I know. And from there, you call it sales, but you're truly educating. And if you do have something you believe in, I think all sales is just educating on a different option, a different solution. And that sounds like the same path you took.
Yeah.
To saying, hey, I can do this instead of I'm a salesperson. No, I'm going to help people.
I feel like that has been the number one thing that has helped me to become so successful. Is because I've always looked at it from a standpoint of education,
right,
and adding value and teaching. And if I walk in that room, whether they buy anything or not, if they learned something, I was happy. But I also found if you are teaching someone something, they want to buy what you have. And I've carried that, like for 9 years I've been doing this. And I've carried that with me all 9 years. And it continues to be successful. Things have changed a lot, especially with social media. So I'm not going to people's homes like I was. That got a little scary and sketchy at times.
I can imagine.
Yep. When you pull up to a house and you're like, I don't know where I am. I don't really know who this person is. They were a referral from someone else. You don't know what you're walking into. It got a little scary. But at that point, I did what I had to do to support my family. But now with the world of social media, it's incredible. And so I do most of my work behind the camera, creating makeup tutorials or skincare videos to educate people on the products that I have and why they are so good. And then also makeup tips and tricks and techniques.
Sure.
And the number of people that reach out and they're like, oh my gosh, I tried this and it was great. I love it. When they were scared to do it before or to even try it, it's just so inspiring.
And I like what you said. You've been doing this for 9 years. Now you're successful. And it's because you took an approach of, I really want to help people, I want to educate. And people can tell when someone's trying to sell them something.
Yeah.
They don't really care. But when you show you care and like, hey, I'm just trying to teach you, that turns into business. And I think more people need to realize, like, depends on what your intention is.
Absolutely.
People can see through that.
Yeah.
Now tell us more about some of these things. You mentioned several different things you're involved. I guess now brag on yourself. You got the makeup. You're doing some other What are you doing?
Okay.
What are you providing to the world these days?
Yeah. So number one, my passion is skincare. Makeup is just fun. It's like the icing on the cake. So I do provide the educational training videos on social media. I also work with a boudoir photographer in the area. And so I'm actually putting makeup on people multiple times a week. And then I do weddings. I do makeup for people for prom and homecoming and their family pictures. And I have one girl that when she just goes out for girls' nights, she calls me and she's like, hey, can we do makeup? Like, I'm going out for a girls' night. Because she says that the confidence she feels when I do her makeup versus when she does it, it's just night and day different. And she wants to feel her best self when she's going out with her girlfriends.
I want to talk about that a little bit more because we have different people listening to the show.
Sure.
We kind of have a boxing theme, so there might be some guys out here listening to this and we're talking about makeup. Why does that matter? But we talked about this a little before this. Like, tell us why that does matter. It's not as superficial because men and women are different. And I think sometimes men might look at this, and I'll say with my life, like, what's the big deal? I don't understand the brands, but the older I get it. So, explain why to a guy why this is so important for a woman's, I guess, self-confidence and psyche, because that's the part that I think is eye-opening. And if someone is at least willing to listen and understand, can you tell us some more about that?
Okay, so I can kind of relate this to the boudoir photography that I do, so or the makeup that I do for the photographer. There's a common misconception with that. A lot of people, and you even said it when I first walked in, you're like, that's like the sexy pictures.
Yes, the boudoirs.
Okay, yes. I mean, they are gorgeous, beautiful works of art. But I'd say probably 95% of the women who come into the studio are doing it for themselves, because they've either recently got divorced or they've recently lost a lot of weight or they've gained weight and they don't love their body anymore. Right. And they're just trying to find a way to love themselves again. And so seeing themselves in this different light and in this different way, it boosts their confidence. It just really makes them feel like their best selves.
Right.
And I love getting to be a part of that because they come in so nervous, which I get. I mean, if I was about to walk in there and take those kind of pictures, I would be like shaking in my boots. But they sit down in my chair and they're nervous, and I just start talking to them, finding out more about them and getting to know who they are and why they're here and what they're doing this for. And I get to hear their story. And meanwhile, I'm putting their makeup on them and doing their hair. And then we turn them around and we show them themselves. A lot of times they cry.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, don't cry. I just worked so hard on this.
You're going to mess it up.
Don't mess up my beautiful work. But they've never seen themselves like that before.
And a word from our sponsor, Texas Hydrostatics. If you've got heavy equipment that you need to maintain or redo the hydraulics on, drilling rigs, excavators, cranes, give Texas Hydrostatics a call. You can find them online at www.texashydrostatics.com. And they see it on TV and they think and they don't realize those people on TV are going what they just went through.
Absolutely.
They think that they're something special and they're a nobody.
Absolutely. And so it just boosts their confidence and it puts a little extra pep in their step and it empowers them to go out into the world and to be the best version of themselves. And that is the power of makeup. And for so many people, it is so superficial. And I see so many people post on social media, or I even was doing a makeup class recently at someone's house, and the husband was like, I don't understand why people buy that because you're just beautiful the way you are. Absolutely you are. You are beautiful in your natural form. But what what makeup can do is it can enhance your natural beauty and just give you that little extra boost you need to walk by a mirror and go, oh, hey, girl. You know what I mean? Like, it just makes you feel empowered.
And I like the empowerment. And like I said, men and women are different. A man might be happy with going fishing, going hunting. That makes him feel, he gets a release. That does something for a person. We're going to do cliches, but then sometimes we don't understand about what somebody else might need. And I think, obviously women are different. And so it's a whole different, you can look at hunting, fishing, golfing as costs that are a waste.
Yep.
And I think there's a temptation to categorize some of these other things for women as a waste, but I think, well, so let's slow down.
Yeah.
Hey, we all need something different. You're providing that, and I think making it okay, and you're seeing the fruits of it.
I am. And what I love is that I get to put it on people and be a part of that experience, but I also get to teach them how to do what I'm doing to them. And then I get to provide the quality products that I just used on them so that they can recreate it in their own bathroom.
And that empowers them even further.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because a lot of people, they'll go to Sephora or they'll go to Ulta or they'll go to the mall and they're shopping and they sit in the chair and someone puts makeup on them and then they buy all the stuff that the person put on them. And then they get home and they're like, what do I do with this? My customers, what they get to do is we'll go have our consultation and I'll, get everything that they need. And then I make videos. And they can pull up my video while they're getting dressed. And I even do custom videos for some people. I'm like, okay, you bought this, 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 and this. You didn't choose these, so I'm going to leave that out of the video, and I'm just going to show you how to use what you purchased. And they'll tell me, they're like, I watched your video every single morning when I'm getting dressed. Because I'm walking them through it, and they feel confident that they can recreate the look and feel like their best selves.
And now let's rewind. Let's summarize. You said, one of your really passions in life is empowering, and how did you put it? Something one person at a time? My mission, my personal mission, I was taught years ago, develop your own personal mission. And mine is to make the world a better place, one person, one face at a time. And if I can empower or inspire one person to feel better or to do something different that helps make their family life easier, then I've done my job. I'm not trying to change the world, that's a whole nother story. But if I can change one person, make one person smile, make one person walk out the door feeling beautiful, make one person learn to love themselves in a way they never have, help one person who decides to partner in business with me provide extra for their family and to not feel that stay-at-home mom guilt anymore, then I've done my job. And I will say, people that do want to change the world, you start exactly what you're doing, one person at a time.
Yep, absolutely.
And so who knows? You could end up changing the world.
It has a ripple effect. I have grown a huge team of people, and there's one girl, I can't wait for the 15th for her to get her paycheck because it's going to be the biggest check she's ever gotten.
That's awesome.
And she is it's going to change her family's life.
And I could tell the passion that's within you. As we wrap it up, why don't you tell people where they can follow you? You have different social media. So
I do.
Tell us where some people can find you and follow what you're doing.
Okay, yeah. So I do most of it on Facebook and on Instagram. Megan Ryder, R-I-D-E-R.
Okay.
Law.
We'll put some of that. We'll put those in the.
Yeah.
In
I know
the
it's a
tags
little
as well.
Spelling can
Megan
be
Ryder Law.
Yep.
On Facebook and Instagram.
On Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm sure it's going to be an inspiration for a lot of others because, like we said, a lot of people think they're the only ones dealing with some of these things.
Yeah.
That's why I love, bringing stories like this. So I'm sure you've inspired a lot of folks, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
And since life does throw you curves, throws punches at you, we like to close every one of our shows by saying, keep your guard up.